Welcome to Channel Security Secrets. I'm Lou Raban. On this show, we expose the untold secrets and critical insights from the people shaping the future of cybersecurity sales in the Trusted Advisor channel. If you're looking to up your game around selling security, stick around. Channel Security Secrets is brought to you by Cyber Defense Group, on a mission to shift cybersecurity from reactive to resilient. I'm excited to welcome today's guest. He's a respected security thought leader, Army veteran, and cybersecurity expert with over a decade of experience in technology and cybersecurity. He served as a Special Forces sergeant in the U.S. Army. In 2024, he was featured in the Top 100 Innovators and Entrepreneurs magazine. He's the founder and former host of the Cyber Pro podcast, co-host of the AVANT Technology Solutions podcast, and currently slays it as a cybersecurity SME at AVANT Communications. Rick Mischka, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lou. How are things going? I think you're probably more of a subject matter expert than I am, but I appreciate the intro.
I don't know. I think it depends on which subject we're talking about. And under pressure, I don't know who can. I think you've probably got the jets to operate a little bit better under pressure. But one of the first things I want to ask you, Rick, is what's your biggest secret, since this is Channel Security Secrets, the biggest secret to success, your success in the channel?
It's really demystifying and simplifying that security doesn't have to be a security conversation. I think in the last year that I've been in the channel, because I've only been in the channel for a year, that's crazy to think about. But in the
Yeah.
last year, I've really taken a different take on how to position security for trusted advisors, subagents, partners. And that's, you all know how to have a sales conversation. You all know how to have a business operations conversation because you're selling connectivity or unified communications. Why are you so afraid to have a security conversation? Really, all you're doing is asking them, what are you doing to protect your data? What are you doing to support your employees? So both of those can continue to give the best service to their customers themselves. And when you phrase it like that, when you use the term resilience or operational advantage, the channel just gets it and the customers love it because now you're having that business conversation and it's no longer this cost center. Oh, I got to spend it because somebody's telling me to spend it. It's, I get to actually make a difference for my organization. So it's kind of a fun trip.
Yeah, and so you think that translating that is a secret, like being able to have the courage, I guess, to open the door to that conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you can translate that, if you can have just enough of an understanding about all of the acronyms in our world, right? There's so many,
Mhm. Too many.
and not worry about what the acronym does, but ask the follow-up question. Oh, you need an identity access management tool, IAM. Why? What is that going to do to allow your business to continue to grow revenue? Oh, well, it's going to allow us to do XYZ. Those are the questions you ask. And when you ask those questions, every customer goes, I want to have another conversation with you because you're making me think.
Yeah, that's a good point because we often are getting calls from TAs that are like, okay, they need a pen test. And so we're like, why? Why do they? It doesn't matter. Customer wants a pen test. Can you do a pen test? And we've been increasingly turning those down because we're saying, hey, listen, if that's all they're interested in, if they don't want to get better, if they're not looking to improve something about their program, then it's probably not a good fit for us. Not saying there's other providers that wouldn't do it, but I think to your point, Rick, it's like when they don't start, when the TAs are not asking those questions of the customers, then they're missing an opportunity, really.
Yeah, and I know you guys are great at the pen test side. You guys have a bunch of other solutions like the cybersecurity consulting arm that you guys do. I always ask the trusted advisor around those pro services. Oh, they said they wanted a pen test. I need two things from that, right? I need a budget and I need to know what the outcome of it is. Because if you can't give me those, then our providers, the cyber defense groups of the world, they're going to decline this. They're not going to support you because they need to know that there's something meaningful going to come out of it. Is it going to be continuous exposure management? Is it going to be, some form of cybersecurity support, whether it's consulting or whether it's a future state, or maybe it's artificial intelligence readiness build. Those are the future of a company. And just because somebody says, my insurance company says I need a pen test, unless they tell you that that budget's 50K or higher, I don't know. That's probably not a great use of everybody's time. So
Yeah, yeah, big time. So, you're throwing out a lot of really advanced concepts. How do you speak to someone that's been selling, broadband, they've been selling, voice communications, and now they're seeing the opportunity in security, but they're just like mortified to even, to your point, throw out the acronyms and really start having that conversation.
yeah, I think if we have two arms, right? A lot of people in the partner community have come from selling connectivity or selling communications. And I tell them that those are fairly commoditized, right? They understand that if I ask this question, they're going to say yes or no. And then I can ask them the next question. And I said, in this case, you're no longer asking the yes or no questions. You have to go back and ask them the open ended question. And so think about the question you're about to ask. Don't ask them what keeps them up at night, right? Everybody asks them that. That's such a, it's such a question that's nowhere. Ask them something that you know already. Did you sell them connectivity? Then ask them, hey, I know that we've been partnering together for a while. I've been able to get you great connectivity rates, or I've helped you with your network arm of your operations. What's the next iteration of your company and how are you securing it? Man, that's an easy question. And I said the word secure. Yeah, I get it. But, ultimately that was what I do. And then the other thing I always tell trusted advisors to ask, and I think this could be used for everything, doesn't matter what it is tell me what you're doing really well today with your security posture. Everybody likes to talk about their good things. They're very positive, and it tells you what they think security means to them. If they say, "Oh, I just bought, XYZ firewalls and we love them. They're super easy to work with." They're a network first company and they haven't thought about their user data. They haven't thought about their cloud posture. There's your next question, right? And cloud's an easy word. It's, a 5-letter network adjacent word. And so same thing with unified communication. You've had a conversation with them about communication. Most likely it's for internal and potentially external customer experience. But now you can take that one step further and say, well, how is your internal employees communicating about what they need to get their job done? And then how can you help support securing that? You're not having a security conversation, you're having an employee conversation, an efficiency conversation. So I try to take it down the journey that they know. And then I will tell you that I've been on a number of calls with partners where I've actually done role playing with them. And I just don't think that the partners are used to that. You and I, when we were younger, man, when I was in the military, man, they'd stick you in a room and they'd be like, all right, let's role play this out. You're about to go talk to this warlord and, for me, it was Yugoslavia, but, and they're like, how would you do this? And then you get feedback. And so the best TAs, the best trusted advisors have been those that role play it out.
Yeah, what you're talking about is preparation. It's funny because,
Yeah.
you've been a special forces operator. We do tabletops, incident response tabletops, and a lot of companies are like, well, once a year or something. And as being, special operations, what do? What's 80% of your time or 90% of your time? It's training, right? The ops part is 10% probably, and most people don't realize that. It's not like you just are so superhuman that you get dropped into an environment. It's that you're so resilient and you can deal with boredom and discipline. You have the discipline to repeat the same thing over and over again until it becomes second nature. And I think what you're saying is the preparation for TAs. It's important. I mean, you and I have been around long enough, me much longer, to remember when, you could take a Cisco SKU, mark it up, like 200, 300%, or maybe 1,000%, where, selling it through Ingram or something. Be like, "Okay, here you go, Mr. Customer," and they had no idea. This is like aughts, even, pre-aughts. But now you got to put a little more effort into it. So that I think is one of the secrets is, if you want to sell security, it's not just as simple as saying, hey, MDR, and then pulling in 3 vendors. You want to understand the pain point, the actual pain point of the customer.
Yeah, and I think you guys have a mini secret in that you just mentioned it, right? Tabletop exercises are preparation for recovery. And I just think you guys, I would love to hear how you guys are doing it and what feedback you're getting. But every time I've put somebody in front of, a customer that says, let's do a tabletop or an incident response plan before we even talk about the rest of your pen test or cybersecurity needs, there's so many more good things that come out of it. What are you seeing on that?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I have an embarrassing story where I got really frustrated with a customer that came through the channel, and the TA probably is not very impressed with me because I kind of lost it because the customer was just like, "Hey, we want to drop USBs in the parking lot," and I'm like, "Well, have you had an assessment? Have you tested your incident response plan? Things like that." So, yeah, we what we're seeing is when we get in to do a tabletop. Actually, the first thing we do is a capabilities assessment because, unless they need to do a tabletop for, compliance purposes and they're interested in doing a little bit more, obviously, to say, "Okay, let's figure it out, and then let's work together as a team." We're not we're trying to avoid the one-offs, obviously, the one-off projects now. But anyway, when we do that, we find that there's a lot of behind that because they're like, "Whoa, we didn't know that we needed, to have an external counselor. We didn't know there was a gap in our cyber insurance, or we didn't realize that we don't have immutable offline backups, or we thought this vendor was covering X and they're not." So, and then with the capabilities assessment, we're like, well, do you even have visibility of, a tabletop is not useless. A tabletop is always really useful, but incident response, you can have a plan, but if you don't have the visibility to know when an incident happens, you're basically getting involved once it's like, a disaster scenario. And the goal in incident response is to catch it early, obviously. So, we're seeing the organizations it's funny because now, going through multiple iterations, multiple generations of, bad experiences for everyone, they're finally catching up with our model, which is, "Let's do this proactively." They might have already been through an incident. They might have had, a provider that didn't really know security that said they knew security, but then they got into some trouble or overlooked something really simple, and so now they're finally coming around to, "Okay, we want someone that does this, knows how to do this, and then is going to make us better," because they're seeing it. You said it earlier. It's not just a cost center, it's an investment. And we've banged that drum, and Stefan has as well, I'm sure, when you guys speak. So you work with Stefan, who's the man. I know he's moved on to cloud now, but
Yeah, he kind of hired me to take over the security so he could go play in bigger, better things. So
yeah, man. Well, you got big shoes to fill, but you're more than capable. So you've been doing a good job.
no, that's wonderful. I will add one thing that I think is interesting, and you guys do it really interesting as well. But uh, you know, post COVID, I saw this huge. This is the quote I use: "vCISO is dead. Long live vCISO." Right. So I make fun of this quote, but SolarWinds happened, and now we're seeing the chief information security officers could be liable because they're negligent if they knew something. And we're seeing all of these folks go, well, we went away from this virtual or fractional cybersecurity consultant to hiring internal. And now we're seeing this trend to go back to it. But if you say the word CISO, everyone's like, no, I don't want an advisor. I actually want somebody who's going to white glove give me what I need, tell me what I'm doing well, show me, not just tell me, but show me how to fix the bad. And I think that's the pivot. And I'm seeing more providers take that approach when it comes to that consulting arm.
Yeah, that's obviously what we're doing. And that's really important because bringing the team, not just saying, "Hey, do this, do that," the armchair, vCISO saying, "I'll come back in a month and check if you did this." That doesn't
Right.
work anymore. So, I mean, it's a scary world out there. I hate doing the sky is falling, right? Because everyone knows everyone's got breach fatigue, etc. But just recently, Microsoft had this SharePoint, 0-day vulnerability. It didn't affect their cloud, but for the on-prem stuff. But we know there's a ton of on-prem, uh, you know, uh, servers and things like that. So also, it's non-traditional industries that are getting hit now, whereas, healthcare, finance, they've always been big targets. They've always invested more than others because they were regulated, but now everyone is, there's if you're connected to the internet, you're a target, and especially with AI leveraging, they can send bots out, and it's crazy. So, anyway, all that to say that having the holistic programmatic approach, there's no other way to do it. Whatever any vendor says, this is your silver bullet, do this, or all you need to do is alerting, all you need to do is MDR. That doesn't those days are gone. If all it takes is one misconfiguration, or even if you have your configuration set, one person to change it because some executive said, "Hey, can you open that port?" Or can you temporarily take off MFA from this portal, and then you're popped. So
Yeah. I will say, you talk, I love the idea of this podcast being for the channel and the secrets
yeah,
around, security, because every time a trusted advisor comes to me, they say, I need somebody who has a security title because this customer won't talk to me because they said that their security is secret. And then you put me or you or another one like us on a call, and it's just like opening the floodgates. They tell us everything. And I go, Why? Why is that the case? Are you hearing something similar? Because I'm hearing it all the time. Like it's so secretive in security, but does it need to be?
I think it's tough, and that's one of my questions for you is the non-practitioner. That's why TAs I think are a little bit reluctant, and it's also why customers are reluctant. It's always been a hypothesis of mine that it's really hard for a non-practitioner to sell security. But it's necessary. So, TAs are there, in my opinion, to open the door and say, "Hey, I know you have a problem. I know people that can help you solve this problem." I think it would be difficult for the TAs to say, because even if they hear it, unless they are practitioners, they're not going to necessarily know when where the gaps are. So, I think it's normal. I don't think it's strange, but I also think that the TAs just have to know where to get the answer, who to bring in to give the answers, to have the call. And their main job, in my opinion, is to open those doors, and then help, find the best solution. Obviously, that's a whole trusted advisor. But for you, question back to you, Rick, is as a non-practitioner, how do you suggest a TA kind of open those doors for the practitioners?
Yeah, and you're spot on about the trusted advisors not having to be practitioners and probably aren't going to be able to sell 75 or 80% of security solutions without being a practitioner. I think the non-practitioners have something that you and I don't have. And that's ultimately the ability to ask a question, and it's okay if they don't know the answer. But if you or I get the question and I don't know the answer, man, it's like I know how to own that. Like, oh, you know what? I don't know about that. I'm gonna go learn that. But it's okay for the trusted advisor to say, I don't have that answer. But thank you for making me think about it because I will find it for you.
Right.
And that's great. That's something that I wish I still had, which I still could say, I don't know. But in most cases, I have to say, "Oh, I think it's this," and
Yeah.
kinda
Yeah.
squint a little bit, kinda have some fun with it, but I really do think that the trusted advisors forget that they don't have to know it all. They didn't know everything they needed to know about whatever they were good at selling before this. They don't need to know everything, and it's okay.
Big time. Yeah. So why do you think that the TAs should sell security?
Yeah, I always tell trusted advisors, it might not be their biggest sale, right? It's not gonna go close, a full SD-WAN across 1,000 sites, $1,000,000 a month type of thing, but it's sticky and it leads to trust that just selling circuits doesn't give you. And that's the trust that will allow you to sell all of the other things, even if it's going back to your base. I also truly think that selling security, especially if you sell it as business resilience, is all about what's right for the business, not just what the business thinks they need for the day. And so, I could sell connectivity all day, I could sell UC all day, but I would also argue that if I'm selling both of those, I'm providing something that the customer needs to do business. Security is no different. And that's the mindset you have to get ready for.
Yeah, I think in those sales, you totally hit this all the time where it's like, yeah, why would they spend a complex security sale to get to know the customer, understand the pain points, put something together that's not just a, hey, here's a quote for X amount of widgets or whatever, X amount of data centers or compute. That and the numbers are much bigger. They get a nice commission check, and it's maybe 3 years, they sign a 3-year deal or something. Definitely the numbers add up to say, "Hey, those are more interesting," but to your point, it's a transactional sale. Once that's done, you may check in with the customer, take them out for some dinners or whatever, but at the end of the day, that you're not going to have any other conversation around that, and it also doesn't necessarily build trust. If you did a good job, that builds trust, but it's not something that's so, once they get that bandwidth, it's kind of like, who do you trust more? The guy that sold you the car or the guy that's fixing the car, right? So, I think that when you can bring your really, problems to a company like where security is and where the numbers may be lower, when you gain that trust where, yeah, okay, wow, they solved a big problem for us. I can sleep better at night, et cetera, et cetera. Then it's like, oh, by the way, we have another project, and it's
Yeah.
not bandwidth and it's not security, it's data center or whatever. So I'm with you. And we've seen that consistently where we're not necessarily the biggest commission check they're going to get, but it's definitely the trust that they get with their customers so they sell more of what they're trying to get in there.
Well, I think there's two other additives to that, right? The first one is if you're having that security conversation, you are going to learn so much more about the rest of their business because they're going to tell you. They're going to be like, "Oh, well, why do you need this tool?" "Well, because it's actually helping over here." "Oh, well, tell me about what's going on over there." The other additive that I find, and this is an interesting stat, security services, both professional and managed, the average long-term revenue play is somewhere to the tune of a customer will buy from a trusted security provider nearly 7.5 years worth of recurring revenue versus cloud, it's like 4.5. We're seeing network is about 5.5, right? It's like one cycle plus a renewal. And in security, it's two cycles plus at least one or two renewals. And so we're just seeing a lot longer play, which means that you just get to stay with that customer longer.
That's
Final thing, and
great.
this is like the bonus, is security providers, or not security providers, security professionals like us, we tend to not have the mentality of we're going to stay with an organization for 30 years, right? That's great. It's awesome. There's a lot of IT directors that have done that. But for the most part, we're super excited to help another company and move on and move on and continue to grow. And so right now, it's every 4 to 5, 4 to 6 years is roughly the transition for a senior leader in security, except for the Fortune 500s. That's a different story. But every 4 to 6 years, they move, and if they trusted you at their last place, you just got a new sale.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's true too because that just like everything, you bring your team, right? Whenever you move and stuff like that. Also, a great thing that you just reminded me of as you're talking about that is security practitioners, we are constant learners. I think people are drawn to security. It's funny because people are constantly probably asking you the same way they're asking me, man, you can make a lot of money in security. How do I get into it? And I'll say, you can make a lot of money roasting chickens, if you're really passionate about it. So I think the people that are most successful at security and the most gifted are the ones that are having the constant, into the constant learning cycle. So by seeing different environments, jumping around. It's one of the reasons that I started, my company, Cyber Defense Group, because I was like, I want to see different things. I don't want to just be part of one team, a cog in a wheel of a Fortune 500 company that I'm kind of pigeonholed to one little area. We see everything and we do a lot. So I think that that's important too, where to your point, moving around, seeing a lot of different environments, that's a plus for cyber practitioners.
No, and we've pulled back tons of curtains for the secret thing, but I'm gonna pull back another one. I also tell trusted advisors that they don't have to go knock on an enterprise door every time. And a lot of times they're like, "Well, we want the big whale." And I get it. Everybody wants the big whale, the big wave, whatever you want. But recently I did the math and I looked at some data. Over 99% of all companies in the United States are 450 or less employees.
Yeah, yeah. That's what drives the economy. It's small businesses, small and mid-sized businesses. It's
Yep.
pretty crazy. Now they're not going to be, SMB is too small for a lot of offerings. They're concentrating on other things, but like mid-size, mid-market is like I think that's where yeah, because you've got what Fortune 500, that's 500 companies, Fortune 1000, whatever. Maybe let's say 2,000 enterprise companies. Below that, to your point, there's, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. The numbers that I saw was companies that have over 10,000 employees in the United States are touch over 10,000. So there's a number there, right? That's a big close, but everybody's knocking on their doors. And then you have it's almost a million SMB, right? That 450 or less. And you're right, they don't always have a big sales cycle, but it is a good place to practice, right? Hey, can I go close one of those big managed detection and response acronyms? It's quick, it's easy, go close it. But you're right. The sweet spot is that mid-market, 450 to just less than 1,000, and there's nearly 200,000 of those companies in the United States. So there's plenty of room to go tackle. Go close an enterprise. Go close the 10,000 employee or bigger. That's fine. Go knock on the doors and practice your voice with the SMBs because they're listening and they have to make quick decisions. But where you're gonna see the biggest spend, where you're gonna see the biggest, provider lean in is that 450 to 1,000, maybe 2,000, it depends on the provider, so
Yeah, and the sales cycles are so much more interesting, because being in the enterprise, it could you could spend a year and a half trying to close a deal. You get to the end point, and then everything's done by committee. It takes so long. Maybe one of your stakeholders leaves, and then you got to restart. There's just so
yep,
many variables in that equation. Whereas when you're in the mid market, you're usually speaking to the top of the chain, food chain, and the procurement process is easier. I mean, mid-market is much more interesting from just a day-to-day standpoint. Obviously, getting one enterprise customer that's going to, do a multi-million dollar multi-year contract, that's great. But to get there, you might be able to make that same amount of revenue off of 10 mid-market clients that have a, 80% quicker sales cycle. So
yeah, no, it's great.
yeah. So what's a challenge that you've had? You've got like the whole channel coming to you saying, "Hey, Rick, we have a whatever, something security related. Can you help us?" What's a big challenge that you and the team have helped solve recently?
Changing the mindset that everything can be fixed with technology.
Mm.
That is the biggest if I stand on a soapbox and have a loudspeaker, that's the biggest thing that I'm really driving change towards. And I was part of a research study through the RSA, through IBM, through Comcast, through Verizon. And we've proven that if a firm focuses on just buying technology, it's not actually helping their security posture. It's actually making it worse, right? There's the stats that we saw were 78% of firms that have more than 30 technologies in security have, so 78% of them have alert fatigue and are still getting breached.
Oh yeah, man.
That's crazy. And so changing it to the service model. What can you do with a pro service, an implementation service, and a managed service that's going to allow your employees to do something efficient for your company, but lower the number of technologies that they have? And the first question I get from customers is, well, the technology is easy. No, it's not. how many staff do you have to throw at that technology when other people, all of you, me, all of our professional brethren, brothers, sisters, they're going to the service providers because they get to play with all the cool technology. They're not going to a mid-market customer. They might go to Google. We get it, right? They might go to Apple,
Yeah,
right? That's
yeah.
fine, whatever. But we see that this trend actually saves the customer money if they spend more on services. And then when a technology like Carbon Black kind of goes away, another technology, another endpoint detection response tool can replace it, and the service provider doesn't have to do anything besides retrain on the product. So that is my biggest push to the market is stop talking about technology. The technology changes every 18 months. Talk about the humans.
I'm standing on that soapbox right next to you, bro, because it's like people and process, and that's what we bring. I mean, that's basically our value prop. Because to your point, technology, it hasn't solved the problem. If you believed every vendor that says that their solution is going to solve the security problem for the last 20, 30 years, look at the stats, they're going in the wrong direction. So, and again, to your point, that obviously breaches are a big thing that we work incident response reactively. We go in there. I can't tell you how many times they've actually had endpoint protection, but at certain endpoints weren't covered. It wasn't configured correctly. We just did one breach that was a provider that had it was a customer that had hired a third party MSP who put an additional, they were charging them more money for email filtering beyond what Microsoft M365 offers. Guess what? If they got phished and popped, hacked, if they had not paid this provider for extra email filtering, they would have prevented the phish because M365 caught it, but then their solution, who I won't name names, said, "No, release that. It's not, a phishing email." And next thing big incident response, hundreds of thousands of dollars later, not covered by insurance, because they didn't have it and they weren't looking at it like that. Now it's a different story. They've got their house in order, but this is the problem because they relied on technology. They were like, "Oh, this is our IT provider. They must know what's going on." And I don't want to get on that soapbox but well, really, real a big problem right now because this is where everyone's finding the issue, and that's where back to the channel. This is where the trusted advisors have an enormous opportunity if they understand that no longer is it, hey, you want eight of those 8 widgets that are going to, or how many seats do you have? 700 seats times these tools, and then you're good. It's not like that anymore. It's yeah, I think asking the why. So you guys have solved that, or not solved that, but you've come close to like saying, "Hey, let's take a step back. Let's ask some questions."
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a time and place for the actual what I would call the actual technology or the platform. Unfortunately, I think customers lean in with that, and the first question I ask them is, "How is this going to actually solve your problem?"
Right.
Right? And if they don't have an answer for me, man, I can solve your problem. Let's get the right people. Let's get you the right process. The technology, you don't even care about the technology once we got the rest of it in play. And
Exactly.
that's the big solve. So
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. What excites you about the future?
I think the blanket answer would be artificial intelligence. But I tell people that in security, artificial intelligence has been around in the form of machine learning since 25 years ago. It's
Yeah.
not new. And
Yeah.
so for me, I actually this is why I think artificial intelligence is so key to the security conversation because it's making people think, how can I be ready to use artificial intelligence? And if they do it correctly, they go, well, let's first look at your systems and then let's look at your data. And then let's look at what you want to get from your systems and data. And then let's build the AI model. And when you do that, you've just built a security posture before you've even gone the artificial intelligence
You
route.
got it.
And so for me, artificial intelligence is the answer, but not for the reason people think.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're seeing is artificial intelligence. I mean, this is obviously a huge bubble. I was speaking to someone recently and they were like, what, what do I have to think about with AI? I'm like, data. That's what it's about. AI today is about data. Like, can it do really cool stuff? Is it going to it's a complete game changer. It's kind of like it definitely is one of those technological milestones like, airplanes and the internet and computers and automobiles, you know what I mean? We will look back and be like, wow, that was delineation basically. But today it's in the beginning. It's like you're not gonna just as you wouldn't have gotten on a plane right after the Wright brothers flight, you're not gonna like yeah, I don't recommend you put your whole business on AI today because it's not gonna end well. But to your point, we are seeing that where the paradigm is let's start thinking about what does AI need? What does that mean? And that's data to your point, so that is exciting. I think it's definitely changing things. I use ChatGPT on an almost daily basis. No, I don't have a relationship with it, and I don't believe it's God or I don't. But it's a great tool. I mean, I used it to review a contract. It's definitely going to put lawyers out of, junior lawyers at least out of business, because I was able to just run a contract through it and said, what are the points I need to pay attention to where I had already done my pass, having read a bunch of contracts. And it pointed out things that I didn't have to go to counsel about because it was pretty straightforward. So it's got its uses and it is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think the big uses are automation and correlation. That's
Yes.
you can correlate a lot of things. You don't have to have structured data to do it, and it helps me automate some of my tasks during the day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. Let's transition to personal. So I mean, you're out there in Montana. Like I haven't been to Montana yet, but it's on the list. I definitely want to get to Big Sky. You're the SME of you were at with Macer G before. You had your own consulting company. Prior to that, you've been working with volleyball. I didn't know this about you, but you were actually a volleyball coach.
Yeah, yeah,
Many years ago, I don't know if they still exist, the Association of Volleyball Professionals, AVP.
yep.
They were a client of mine back in the '90s in LA. So,
Nice.
it's I lived in LA in the '90s and late '90s, and they were they were based in, if I remember correctly, like Marina Del Rey or something, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. AVP still around. Before I got into coaching, and as I was getting into coaching, I actually played on the AVP tour for a while. I played professionally in
wow,
Finland. Yeah, so I had a good career in volleyball.
that's awesome.
Yeah, had a great run coaching, coached the men's national programs for a while, so it was a lot of fun.
Dude, that's amazing. You've got the height for it. So it's good, man. I should get my sons interested and introduced to you. They've got little height there. I didn't get the same gene. I gave it to them, but I didn't get it. But that's awesome. Volleyball is great workout too. Beach volleyball, very cool. But tell me about how you transitioned from the military into kind of private sector.
Yeah, so I joined the military as a reservist and never saw a reserve unit. I actually got into the military and became part of what is now called direct entry for special forces. I was one of the first X-ray classes to go through it. And I got put on to a tier one operating team. And so it was a great experience for me. I was in for just shy of 7 years. And then when I got out, I didn't know what I wanted to be. And I said, well, I did all this really high speed stuff. I should probably stay into some field that's high speed and went into firefighter paramedic world. My grandmother reached out and was like, hey, you have a chance to go back to college. You'd be the first person in our family for the last 5 generations to ever go and get a college degree. So I chose to take a scholarship in volleyball, play college volleyball, and turn it into a career, but get my bachelor's degree. And then because I was coaching at the university level, I was able to go back and get a bunch of master's level courses and got a degree. And I was able to kind of just move that forward. At one point, I'd always thought I was gonna be in technology, right? I was a high schooler when the internet was a thing, so I can date myself there. The gray beard does have some ownership there. Yeah. And I remember my buddy and I, we won a programming contest, and then I just never used it. And so I went back and non-traditionally found 4 certifications in cybersecurity that I really felt I could do through a boot camp. Passed all 4, and reached out to my network and was like, "Hey, where should I go? What opening should I take?" And I was given an opportunity to become a mix of a compliance engineer and also do digital forensics and investigations. And from there, it just that's where I went. Right, I was an architect for a while, and then I went into product management, and now, fully sit on that consultatory side of things. And I can't imagine a better life. It's so much fun. So,
Yeah, man, and it's been a really interesting journey for you from, special forces paramedic, firefighter, that's crazy, volleyball, and then going into cyber. Yeah, that's really cool. And doing forensics is really, really interesting. I think having that kind of background is really important. They used to say like you didn't have to be technical to be in cyber. I'm sorry, but there are aspects you can do GRC, you can do some other stuff. Privacy. There's definitely areas that you can do where you don't have to necessarily be technical, but to really be effective, you need that technical background. So it doesn't get much more technical than doing
it,
forensics.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
Oh, you'll have to come up to Montana. You'll come hang out. We'll go on the Yellowstone River because I do live about 5 minutes
Yes.
away from the river. So
Man, that's amazing. I've never been out there. I'm absolutely gonna take you up on that for sure. I definitely wanna see Yellowstone. You also speaking of Yellowstone, I remember you telling me, are you now a licensed pilot or where are? Because you said you flew over the park, right?
I did fly over the park. By the time, by the end of this year, I will be a licensed private pilot and I'll be starting working on my commercial hours. I have enough hours to test, but it's one of those where I just want to make sure I pass it on the first go, right? I think most cybersecurity professionals are kind of perfectionists, so I'm kind of doing the perfectionist thing, and so I will have my pilot's license by the end of this year, and it's super exciting because I get to go up about 2 to 3 times a week, and my flight view are mountains and rivers. You can't
Yeah,
complain about that.
like some of the best in the country,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than Yellowstone, man. That's crazy.
No, it's amazing.
That's cool. So, if you do you have a personal story of, anything that demonstrates where cybersecurity had kind of an impact on your life?
Yeah, so this is a mix of impact of being in the military as well as cybersecurity. 2 years ago, I really was, and I still am very passionate about cybersecurity. And I had been working with a nonprofit that was heavily focused on transitioning military folks out into cybersecurity. What I was seeing was that these military folks, while they were well trained, had mental toughness and resilience, still had some form of PTSD. And so I really started focusing on that. And that led me down the path of identifying that cybersecurity professionals are actually one of the highest burnout rates in all careers. And so I went back and applied and got in to get my PhD. I'm almost done with the dissertation and I'm going to be defending it this fall. And I'm focusing on how cybersecurity professionals, through their organizations, not as individuals, but through their organizations, can be provided with mental awareness and preparedness training because ultimately a cybersecurity professional is no different than a military soldier. The only difference is there's not bullets coming at their heads. There's bits, right? There's bytes. There's attacks, and I'm putting together a really cool research process around how I can take that burnout in the cybersecurity profession and extend it so we have less of a skills gap.
Rick, I mean, that's so impressive. With your background and everything, I had no idea about the PhD. You're just a badass, man. Like, mad respect, and it's great too. I mean, there's no doubt that there's a real issue with mental health. I mean, in many ways, I think in a lot of professions, but definitely cyber has its own unique challenges, and that's great. That's going to be a good dissertation.
Yeah, I'm excited. The research is done. Now I just gotta, and the paper's mostly done. I just gotta defend it. So,
Yeah. Oh, so wow, that's a lot of work, man.
yeah, the research is done. I'm in final peer review. for, just being able to say, yep, it's done. It can go to bed. And then defense happens probably in December of this year.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
good luck with that. I know you'll kill it like you have everything else in your
Oh, thank
life.
you.
So, in a good way. Um, cool. I mean, I think we've covered just about everything here. It's been a real pleasure. Where can people find you?
Yep, I'm on LinkedIn. I typically stay off the other socials, but you can find me on LinkedIn pretty easily. And then look for me at Avant. I'm obviously available, and I am happy to just sit down and nerd out over almost everything, even cheese. I'm from Wisconsin, so if you want to talk cheese, I'll talk cheese too.
That's a fun fact too. All right. Thank you, Rick Mischka.
Thank you, Lou.
And thank you to everyone that's watching and or listening. If you had fun, learned something today or laughed, please tell someone about this podcast. And yeah, thanks again, Rick. This has been another exciting episode of Channel Security Secrets. See you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Channel Security Secrets. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes, guest info, and more episodes, visit us at channelsecuritysecrets.com. Channel Security Secrets is sponsored by Cyber Defense Group. When it comes to protecting your business, don't settle for reactive. Partner with experts who build resilience from the ground up.